Hello and welcome to this reading of my story, Reincarnated Lizard's Ascension, and I'll be reading it in its entirety. Tom was walking home from his job at a pizzeria, evening sun shining, setting behind the city skyline. However, the chill air of spring stung his freshly washed hands, so he swiftly and with practiced ease slid them inside his grey coat. People driving past on a nearby road, ignoring his average looks: blue jeans, black sneakers, grey coat, and a football beanie. Unfortunately, this ordinary person had their life ended prematurely after crossing a street and passing Joe's pressure washing business extraordinaire van. Tom had died from a severe blow to the back of the head. Tom should have looked behind him, as at that very moment Joe, the extraordinaire in pressure washing, was fiddling with the nozzle of an industrial pressure washer. The 15mm piece of iron nozzle had been loosened from the main body of the pressure washer, and the thick finger accidentally pressed the simple device, launching the deadly projectile. Death was quick, like a bullet to the back of the skull, mainly because it was like a solid iron bullet, with a hole in the middle for shooting water. Tom awoke to a terrible itch in his mouth. No, it was something else. His maw hurt with a most dreadful itch in this darkness. However, luckily out of the two problems, the darkness became an antique white colour after a long amount of time, comforting in its all-encompassing glory. Simple thoughts occupied Tom's mind, feeding an unknown urge to act on something deeper within. Tom slowly began to rub his face against the blinding barrier, fixing an itch he didn't know he had. A thundering crack echoed out within his world. Then the world became duller, and the smell of fear swept in through the broken barrier. Lifting his head, more cracks sounded out as his long, sinuous neck reached to the outside world. Tom had a momentary pause, blurry vision of green and brown slowly adjusting into familiar shapes. From those shapes arose blades of grass. Cracks appeared within the brown, the trunk of a monolithic tree. Despite the smell of fear and the vastness of the outside world, tiny claws dug into eggshell. From out of a comforting home, a new lizard of grey colour was born, with 3 stubs on its face, 1 stub on the snout, and 2 atop its skull. Instincts took over the small body. Tom barely even recognised what was happening, resulting in a small lizard scurrying away into the dark underbrush of the forest. 1 day later, within the depths of a deciduous forest populated with oaks, birch, maple, and aspen trees, large leaves blooming in early summer blocking most light from reaching the forest floor, scant evergreen trees attempting to survive until autumn, when they would have free rein over the currently restricted sunlight. Yet a small lizard was not playing the game called survival of the fittest. Instead, the lizard was thinking of where it was and how it came to be, from atop a grey rock in a small clearing. It's the second day of my life in this new world. The first was like a fever dream, running helpless to stop or think about the world around me. I still feel like I am in a dream, a nightmare from a reincarnation story. That was close. I wish I had some sort of fireball or superpowered system to keep me alive in this world. I must get moving before this feeling inside of me grows too much to bear. And I am off running into a green bush with ashen-coloured branches keeping me hidden from the horrors outside. Climbing the twisting branches around the main trunk of the bush to get a height advantage over whatever my instincts are afraid of. The first night was terrifying, with no control over my body. It felt like a horror movie with me being the main character. The fake main character. That was going to be the murder victim that starts the movie for real. Sounds from a horror movie sounding out around me. Screeches and short yapping followed by growling were a common sound. However, sometimes flapping of wings could be heard as great beasts set off from the perches above. My new body had adapted to let me survive in this world, as slithering tongues shot out through my sharp teeth, slinking around my mouth to smell my surroundings, but feeling as though I had licked everything around me in a 1-meter radius. I might be helpless, but I am not clueless. System, help me! Yet nothing but a meep came out. Not a desirable result, as from out of the other side of the clearing something had been summoned. A fox-like creature, long legs that gave it the stature of a wolf, its eyes having the colour of the setting sun. It stared up at me. Luckily, I was far enough away from the ground. However, it still did jump a few times up, shaking the large bushy wildly in an attempt to shake me down. After staring at its eyes for a while, the orange idiot finally got the memo and left me alone, watching it disappear into the underbush at a casual gait, allowing me to return to my inner musings. However, my musings were limited by a primal instinct. For a while now I had a tooth aching, acting like a tusk outside my mouth. The same one that I had used to break free from my shell. I began to rub it against the shrub's bark. Thud. An iron taste filled my mouth, and I had lost my egg tooth. But my primal instincts were satisfied. 1 week later, I have found a reliable source of water, only a little ways away from my favourite rock, an hour or two at a lizard's pace. Most of the journey there and back consists of me running under plants in fast sprints before getting a breather and continuing. It has been a week and I already feel myself growing into my body. Looking down at the river only confirms my assumption, looking like an adorable mix of a bearded dragon and a leopard gecko, although I might be slightly biased towards my new looks. 2 little horns sprout from the top of my head, a third horn on my snout. The darker greys on the horns make them stand out against my stone grey-coloured scales. Snap. My musings are brought to an end as something from further down the stream walks up to the river. Cloaked in green from head to toe is a humanoid figure. A bandana made from a black cloth blocks their lower face, leaving only the brown eyes visible. A dark green cloak covers most of their body, from the hood covering not only the hair, but also wrapping around to shade their forehead, to the green wrappings on their feet, looking like hospital bandages than shoes. Green tunic covers their front, as well as a dark brown bandolier keeping the tunic form-fitting to the muscular individual. Along the belt covering his chest, as well as a secondary belt keeping green trousers from slipping, are pouches and daggers. Some pouches are fully closed, but others have simple straps keeping herbs and mushrooms in place, alongside 2 daggers on the chest and 4 on the belt. Having learnt my lesson from the maned wolf, I keep quiet, watching as the person thuds his way through the forest. His ignorance is afforded to him by his dangerous aura, a black, seeping aura billowing from him like a fog. If he were me, then a plethora of birds would have caught him, to be carried away and then later torn apart by their offspring. Instead, this man gets to the water, before pulling his hand behind his back and retrieving a brown flask, opening the cork, drawing water, and then leaving without a care in the world, oblivious to me staring at his every move. I could get used to being this sneaky, cold-blooded in my patience. Maybe because everything is so new, but I quickly returned to looking back at myself, so handsome and good-looking. Keeping in mind not to voice my self-introspects, the horns look more imposing as the days pass. My serrated front row of teeth, alongside the secondary row of palatal teeth, from tearing into any mouse that dares to come across me. Even though my diet is currently focused on much smaller prey, like berries, common blue beetles living in the ashen bushes, and an unlucky cicada every now and then, my ferocious appetite allowing me to eat more food than the size of my stomach. The cicada are the best, tasting like chicken with a size to almost fill me up, but my growing body always needs more fuel. Slit eyes capable of tracking even the slightest of movements out of the ordinary. Yet not all things that I have eaten can be considered so good. Despite a crunch like the cicada, a few black beetles and some flies that I have managed to catch tasted like literal poop. I am still alive with no adverse effects, although only begrudgingly, since lizards can puke if indigestion, something actively harmful. Guess dung insects are not harmful to my instincts. Still, all this knowledge will be valuable to me later, especially considering I don't see a way out of my current body problem anytime soon. and I cannot rely on good weather lasting in winter. 2 months later. I have been growing at an accelerated rate. Clearly this species is not meant to live long. A short adulthood is indicative of an early death, and that is not something I wish to follow the path of. I just need to find a way to become bigger and stronger, to live longer. Becoming an adult in a couple of months has been a rollercoaster, with anger at the unfairness of my situation, to happiness at the simple life that I now lead, sitting on a rock in the morning and sleeping in the evening. No more overtime, no more customer complaints, and most definitely no more money problems. However, as of recently I have been losing myself. I feel less in control than when I started in early spring. I feel my mind being swept up by instincts. I wake up, sunbathe, eat and go to sleep when my body requires it, making me feel like a third wheel in this world. The vast world is dangerous. I would not be alive without my instincts. Following them is my only choice. But the more I follow them, the less I am confident of ever returning to who I used to be. Would I even be able to return to being humanoid? Sitting on a rock, basking in the fading sunlight is wonderful. A holiday I could never afford in the past. However, should I even care if I stopped being myself? I most likely died, and would have died again if not for my primal self. So who is to say I need to be that which has failed in the past? This is a new start. No matter my current disposition, I see something entering my sunbathing spot. The interloper is another grey lizard, looking exactly like me, although this lizard has long horns, one on its snout and 2 on the back of its head. The small creature boldly stands there as we stare at each other. My inner instincts start feeling something new, a feeling of anger at the strange, and for the first time I feel a need to charge headlong into trouble. Even though I want to accept who I am now, I am still reluctant to shed blood unnecessarily. Therefore, I go for a dissuasion strategy. Feeling my body puff up, I squeak, although I am attempting to mock the opponent. "Hey, you fly! Begone from my territory!" The admittedly unimpressive insult turned out to be a hit. Or maybe the other grey lizard overreacted and screeched. My large form stood up as my opponent ran at me, my shadow stretching over the grass of the clearing and engulfing my opponent. I sent out a screech of my own before jumping to engage in melee combat. My head lands atop my opponent, our horns clashing in a hollow thunk sound, like a knock on the door. 14 centimeters long, I am slightly smaller than my opponent at 15 centimeters. We push on each other, attempting to wedge our horns into our opponent's eye. My initial lunge got me close, but now I had begun to be pushed back. My body may be small, but my horns are no less bigger or sharper than my opponent. Thinking quickly allows me to come up with a plan. My sense of self coming up with this plan rather than my instincts. The plan to allow my opponent's horn through while angling my head down. Once my opponent had overshot me, I quickly stab up. With the soft, small scales underneath the mouth, I am able to pierce through with my nose horn. My opponent, in a panic, proceeds to thrash around, dislodging my horn and throwing me a distance in the process. However, I quickly get up before staring at my opponent, still upside down and panting. Meanwhile, I am no worse for wear. Deciding to capitalize on my opponent's lax attitude, I scurry forward, my little feet clawing at the blades of grass to propel me forward. I run up a bit too slowly as the lizard flips over. With blood still dripping from its mouth, it opens the mouth wide as a threat display. Ignoring the 2 sets of razor-sharp teeth, I run around, before latching onto the underside of the neck, just below the back horns. My tight grip remains as my opponent begins to thrash again, snapping his mouth at my body, but because of my grip he is not able to reach me. His tail lashing out at me hurts, whipping me over my back and hitting my spine, but I keep latching on and retaliate with my own tail. Having a better purchase on my opponent allows me to flip over alongside him rather than being thrown away. We tussle in the grass, a mess of limbs and claws and whipping tails. Eventually I let go, feeling myself tire and begin to hurt too much for my liking. We separate and gain some distance between each other. Blood drips off my side, where sharp claws raked them up and down. My scales slashed in half and ripped off. My opponent is in a similar situation. My teeth left a large wound on his neck while I went into a frenzy, my sharp teeth grinding in place on the scales and later his flesh. The pierced mouth was the same, but his sides were also cut by my claws. Now, I just need to wait for the neck wound to further debilitate my opponent. Then victory would be mine. Less competition for me. Wait, this is wrong. I didn't want this much bloodshed when I began this fight. But why do I want to eliminate my competition so much now? Unfortunately, my thinking time was cut loose once more. From behind the other lizard, something shook the bushes. The larger lizard was closer, and had its head facing me, leaving him with no time to react to what came next. The sound of twigs breaking and air being displaced came too late, as a maned wolf shot out of the underbush. Jaw snapping shut over my enemy, his tiny form being bit in half, blood spurting out between the little teeth and spraying in my direction. Fighting caused my adrenaline to rise, but now its production increased once more, beyond what I thought possible. Watching something that I had a tough fight with getting crushed so easily instantly made me retreat, but I will not forget that moment anytime soon. I ran away. My heart felt like it was going to explode. My tail luckily didn't detach. By the time that the maned wolf had finished thrashing the lizard, it turned its attention my way. But by then, I was on the other side of the clearing and making a mad dash to a nearby tree. Once next to the tree, I quickly scampered up the trunk, going up diagonally to hide myself from view of the maned wolf running after me. Yet the maned wolf still caught up. Snap! Growl! I could feel the air get displaced just behind my tail, bloody slobber thrown over the tree's trunk, scampering up the branches and breaking line of sight from the beast. After some time, and with a disappointed growl, the beast left, while I hid in the canopy. Luckily for me, the trees had plenty of leaves to shield me from aerial predators. With me being this high up, it would have been far easier for them to snatch me up than when I was on the ground. 3 months later. Summer is coming to an end. The days are becoming colder, and I would not be surprised to start seeing the leaves start to change colour. The water is much colder now, but considering that it comes from some mountains a large distance away, that is to be expected. Those snow-covered peaks appear to be growing, or I could be going insane. I'm actually acutely aware of all the sounds around me. A noise from a hawk-like creature, to a bark of something unknown, to the sound of a maned wolf. I can hear the crickets chirp, and other small insects join a chorus with the smaller birds. I am quiet, far too scared to talk, but also as a lizard I do not seem to be very sociable. The quiet is my friend, to know rather than to be known. From my spot on the rock I look around my clearing, seeing the bushes on my left shift I run away, hiding in the branches of a nearby tree, while something walks out into my clearing. This someone appears to be the size of a 14-year-old child, although their arms are elongated and their skin is green. 2 tusks come from their lower jaw and stick out over their upper lips, while the mouth remains closed. I am currently rather large, being 20 centimeters long, so I am wary of larger creatures that might see me as a snack, considering that these 4 goblins are dressed in a maned wolf's pelt, as well as smaller creatures. I am inclined to stay away. From this distance I can see some decorations, like a Native American bonnet on the leader, made from red and black feathers, all of them wearing necklaces around their arms, but also their hide clothes adorned with teeth and shells that are sewn on. They appear to be an organized group, as they disappear back into the clearing as silently as they came. Even if I saw them easily, they were much better at this than that rogue. Once some time has passed, yet before I feel safe to climb down, I begin to think of food. This food might be juicy bugs, like cicada, but they are still better than those dung beetles. How the mighty have fallen from eating chicken and beef to dreaming of bugs. Unfortunately, my favourite pickings are becoming scarcer every day, and I might be going hungry soon altogether. I know all those anime and fantasy tropes, so maybe I have been going about my life all wrong. Maybe I need to seek for power and then be given it. Well, it is worth a shot. If a god of dragons exists, then please make me into a dragonkin. I don't want to be useless all my life and die young again. I wish to bring fear into the hearts of my enemies. I want to eat nice meat, and I want to live in a nice place with lots of sunshine. And I hope you have a nice day. Chapter 2. Just in time for a bloom. Convergent evolution theory. Halflings are a subspecies of humans, focusing on conserving energy and being capable of eating more niche foods than humans would simply ignore. Less caloric foods like plant roots and plant seeds, excluding almost all meat in their diet due to accessibility issues caused by their smaller size, making halflings worse hunters. Orcs are physically stronger than humans, due to them being larger and more aggressive but with a more carnivorous diet. Goblins follow a similar trend to halflings, as goblins are smaller than orcs, focusing on eating more niche foods that would be ignored by orcs. This means that goblins eat a lot more herbs, roots and seeds than orcs. However, goblins still regularly hunt small prey creatures, diverging but still following a diet similar to orcs. Both orcs and humans have a smaller subspecies that eats more niche foods, allowing these species to live alongside their larger and more carnivorous counterparts. This is all happening between two separate species, who have simultaneously had a subset separate and become miniature versions of the original. Fascinating research journal. 3 months later. Tom has been alive in this world for 232 days. Life is tough, but I know it's going to get worse before it gets better, especially with autumn bringing in a new set of challenges as the leaves fall off the trees and most insects go into hibernation along with birds migrating, and suddenly everyone has less food and shelter. Currently, Tom has to spend a lot longer on his sunbathing rock in the clearing every morning to get the required body temperature to move at full speed, with it taking longer to wake up and move to the clearing, and his underbrush hiding spot becoming a pile of leaves, leaving Tom with a lot of worries about his home in winter. The temperatures is becoming unbearable on Tom, and his instincts bring attention to need of a warm hiding place that is either underground or a crevice somewhere that can hide his entire body. There are 3 options for a home. Find someone with it and live there with them, similarly to a grizzly bear cave or some magical creature that won't bother him and a few will bother it. Find a home where he can fit, or kill some creature and take it home like a rabbit or a rat home, since the field mouse found around his clearing are a tasty meal but not housed in burrows large enough for a 3-horned lizard. With a plan in mind, I must say goodbye to my now rather brown patch of a clearing and go find a new home, preferably before it snows and I get frozen. So I climb the nearest tree and finally get a view of my surroundings without just leaves getting in the way. The view was stunning, with large mountains seeming to go on forever on one side, and the other a field of large trees with no leaves and some noble fir evergreen trees. The journey is harsh as a small lizard, with all the new scents and prowling predators still stocking up on fat for winter, which would probably confirm that it will in fact soon snow and I need to find a home for hibernation. The forest is littered with felled trees, but most are not rotting, so I can't dig through them, and the others are made of wood comparable to a cardboard, with how they are easily ripped apart by me. However, at least in such cases I can refill my belly and keep my nice chunkiness on the various grubs and insects that had such low standards for their homes. It was a week before I found a suitable home in the form of a rabbit running around and some bushes. Then I found some more. So this home will have to be shared accommodations, but that will be fine, considering the error in my judgments. as all other three-horned lizards are by now nowhere to be seen and it's very cold. Should have went towards the mountains, as that is probably where I could have found the crevice to hide. Now that I think about it, a mountain would also fit my coloration scheme of being grey and having good climbing claws, but poor digging claws. But then again, I should have also realised this sooner and maybe listened to my instincts rather than gluttony for mice and beetles. It was a bit of a shame how fast the cicada went away this summer. As I approach the entrance of one of the burrows at the middle of the day, I see the rabbits spring up in panic as they raise on their back feet. But I care little for their worries of being eaten. Even if they look rather juicy, I have put my priorities, and I will be damned if I have to stay outside in this cold any longer. As I near to the entrance, there is a sound. Thump, thump. The sound of rabbit feet on the packed earth aloud, as I can only see 5 rabbits above ground, but clearly hear more from my approaching hole. As I enter, I come face to face with a real big bun. It blocks the entire passageway and is clearly intent on making me leave. The grunt's too little to move me as I move down and bite on its nose, causing the rabbit to pull away, leaving fur and nose in my mouth, and a retaliatory strike to be aimed at my head as the large incisors bite down. However, my horn takes the brunt of the attack and smashes into the rabbit's large front teeth, allowing me to quickly pull away before aiming for the top of the head at around the eye level, causing a lot of noise and thrashing. Ee! Ee! The rabbit thrashes and squeals as it tries to pull back further into the burrow, but my teeth don't let go from their perches on the skull. The serrated teeth are soon followed by my front claws. I tear blindly at what I assume to be a rabbit in front of me in this messy tunnel fight until a long while the screaming dies down and we are back to a peaceful atmosphere and the sense of a fresh kill. I push the rabbit down further into the burrow to a T-intersection where I leave the body for now and go left in the tunnel where I reach what appears to be a brooding room filled with fluff, straw, hair, feathers and twigs, making it for a lovely and warm bed along with a meal that I left just behind me. With a good stroke of luck, I eat the rabbit in 2 days and finally head off into a deep slumber, hoping to avoid the bitter cold and any other unwanted violent ventures for the burrow, although that is rather hypocritical considering that I am said unwanted company. But you never know if one of the other rabbits still wants revenge, as they don't hibernate like I do. But there is some hope that the bones outside my new suite are enough deterrent for them. Before the hibernation, I decide to pray again. I pray to the dragon god so that I don't have to live in this small tunnel, and so that I may grow into a fearsome beast someday. But I will take an uninterrupted hibernation too. Good night. Slowly falling inside the warm, comfortable bedding, I fall asleep. As the lizard falls asleep somewhere far away and yet in a very familiar area, a seed falls from a flying beast and hits a stone bouncing from it, before quickly rooting itself in the soil. What is it and what it does is unknown, but that is a mystery for later. Rah! Rah! Groo! Scree! 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 Oh, damn it, not again, the lizard says as it wakes up. Tom has not had a good hibernation yet, as waking halfway through due to the sound of the long-legged foxes walking above his home and constantly yapping. This home is not as peaceful as initially thought. This sound of burrowing coming from above are what really rouses him. As the lizard looks up, it sees the ceiling drop dirt down on top of it and has to shake its head to clear the dirt and close the slit eyes to blink the dust away. As Tom looks up again, there is a snout popping into the lizard's room and heaving in and out, so it gives the snout a good bite, causing a rah. And as the fox jerks its head up, slightly larger lizard then the hole gets stuck, quickly letting go before it could get pulled out of the hole and dashing out of the chamber past the pile of bones. The lizard moves forward past the exit and further into the maze of this rabbit warren, although this run is much slower than usual due to still being cold. After making it to another chamber, the lizard finds a nice spot near the wall, with some sticks and grass curling in on itself, to go back to hibernating into a deep slumber that is slightly less comfortable than before. 4 months later. The lizard is only awoken again after a restful slumber, and once it exits out the same way that it came, by following its scent to the outside world. The world outside has already begun to bloom. It is the middle of the day, as the burrow has only just now warmed up enough on the inside, but it looks like the rabbits decided to relocate for nothing, because now Tom has to go all the way back to his rock and territory a whole week away. Luckily this time it should be much safer, and Tom would be much faster in the rising spring temperatures. The journey back is put on hold for a day though, as Tom hunts a mouse and some insects to get rid of his starvation from hibernation, before setting up a record for getting back home in under 3 days, with a few large fuel stops at rotting logs that were packed full of larva-like insects that were almost ready to leave their rotting homes. Looking a bit like mealworms, with long bodies combined with a tiny head and a few legs at the front, resulting in their back halves almost snaking after the front in the rotten tunnels of the logs. However, as the lizard reached the edge of its clearing, it spotted something that it did not know what it was. As it looked over at its basking spot, there was a flower that looked like a dragon orchid, such a rare plant with a mesmerizing aura that immediately caught the lizard's eye, as it was just beside its now second favorite thing in the world. Before the lizard even knew what had happened, it had crossed the clearing in but a moment, and the flower was gone, eaten in a whole in a single bite, as all that was left was the stem and roots around the rock that held no interest of the lizard. Power slowly filled the lizard until a new equilibrium was reached in its body. However, what changed would not truly manifest itself until later, when summer finally finished. In the meantime, the lizard said a prayer of thanks and left its basking rock to go out hunting for more food, as it felt the need for more sustenance, causing Tom to impromptu smirk by raising his lips, inadvertently causing a large toothy grin to appear shortly after on the lizard's face for the rest of the day. So if you like this sort of story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and you can always check out my links down in the comments down below. Every little bit is appreciated, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.